A dilemma that many face in their personal finance life is whether they should use spare cash to invest or pay off debt. In this video, I'm first going to break down 4 steps that you could take to help you on this decision. Then I'll share my personal opinion on what I think about investing versus paying off debt. So let's get into it. What's up everyone? This is Brandon Hill and welcome back to my channel where we share content to help young professionals develop personally, professionally, and financially. First, as a disclaimer, I'll say that none of this should be seen as financial advice. I'm just presenting this information for educational purposes. Anyways, with that out of the way, I'll say that I'm personally always trying to decide on whether I should invest or pay down my debt, such as my student loans. Many people feel like you have to do one or the other, but it's not an all or nothing choice. You can invest while also making debt payments at the same time, and I find this balance between doing both, and I'll share how. The dilemma of this choice comes from the want of investing, but the need to pay down debt. You want to invest because you know it has the potential to grow over time and it could set yourself up for retirement. However, the need or obligation to pay down debt weighs on your ability to invest. You can't simply ignore all your debt obligations and just invest everything that you have. Your bills need to be paid, and if you just ignored your debt and started investing, your interest charges would compound and you'd be shooting yourself in the foot financially. To help you decide what route to take, consider these 4 steps. Coming in at step 1, you'll first want to make your mandatory minimum payments. When you have extra cash lying around, the first thing you should do is look at the minimum payments that you're required to pay on all your outstanding debt. These could include student loan payments, car payments, mortgages, and credit cards. Each of these carry a minimum payment that you have to make every month. So when you have your cash, you first want to make these minimum payments. Then step 2 is to build up your emergency fund. Before using your money to invest or pay down debt, you'll first want to build up an emergency fund. An emergency fund is a collection of savings that you build up to use as a financial safety net when inevitable emergency situations pop up. These financial emergencies may come from losing a job, sudden illness, or damage to expensive property that you have. Use your extra cash to build up this reserve first. You'll always want to have a liquid amount of cash that you could use to cover 6 months of expenses in case any emergencies happen. So if you spend $3,000 a month on rent and groceries and other things, you'll want to have $18,000 saved up. Step 3 is to analyze interest rate versus growth rate. This will probably play the biggest factor on helping you decide whether you should invest or pay off debt. Simply put, the interest rate on your debt will make your net worth decrease, whereas the growth rate of your investments will make your net worth increase. So let's walk through an example. And as I walk through this, assume these are after-tax rates. So if your overall debt has an interest rate of 10% and your investment portfolio is expected to grow at 7%, the net outcome of this would be a 3% decline in net worth. In this scenario, it wouldn't make sense to use your money to invest because the return of your investment doesn't exceed the interest rate on your debt. The debt is pulling you down more than your investment is lifting you up. Now let's look at another scenario. In another scenario, imagine that the interest rate on your debt is 5% and you believe your investment will grow by 10%. Now, the net outcome is a positive 5%. In this scenario, it makes sense to invest because your growth rate is greater than the interest rate on your debt. It sounds easy enough, but this is an art and a science. While you know what the interest rate on your debt is, maybe 5%, you can have an idea that your investment will grow by 10%, but it's not a guarantee. The markets fluctuate, some years it's down, some years it's up. So while on average, a market may go up 7 to 10%, it isn't guaranteed. So the art and the science comes into play because you have to have faith in your investment choices and abilities in order to achieve at least the market return or above market returns. Consider this when you're deciding to invest or pay off debt. Some types of debt, such as credit cards, could have interest rates that are higher than 20% a year, and it'd be pretty hard to beat that return with an investment. So if your interest rate is that high, it's probably best to tackle that first. So strategize by paying off the types of debt that carry the highest interest rate. Then if you're left with a loan that has a 5% interest rate, it might make more sense to start investing your money. The 4th and final step is to consider the emotional burden that your debt causes. The numbers on the spreadsheet could make sense to you when you're making this decision. You see that your investment has a higher growth potential than the interest rate on your debt, but that doesn't take into account the emotional burden that debt can have on you. Many people hate the feeling of owing money to somebody, and it can feel like a gray cloud that is just lingering over you. If this sounds like you, it might be more beneficial to just pay down your debt and have some peace of mind rather than trying to balance the interest rate of the debt versus the growth rate potential of your investments. If paying down your debt will help you sleep at night, you should do that. It wouldn't be the best option for you if you start investing your cash, but you're still feeling anxious about all the debt that you owe. The returns from the investment may not be worth that stress. But everybody's different. Some people don't want to have any debt, and for others, debt doesn't bother them. So decide on what's most beneficial to you. Now I'll share my thoughts on investing versus paying down debt. For myself, my debts include my monthly credit cards that I have, which I usually pay off, and then my student loans. I tend to not let my credit card balances accrue each month, so I'm not really subject to that high 20+% interest rate. I basically just have my student loans, which carry around a 5% interest rate. My decision making on investing or paying down debt is as follows. First, I'll make all my minimum monthly debt payments. Secondly, I'll pay down high interest rate debt like credit cards. And 3, I'll invest only after number 1 and 2 have been done. So this goes along the lines of what we've talked about so far. And basically, I make all my mandatory minimum payments, then I tackle the high interest rate loans such as credit cards, and then I invest after that. I do have a hefty amount of student loans, but I choose to prioritize investing over accelerating the pay down of my student loans. The reason I do this is just my own personal confidence that I could achieve a higher investment return rate than the interest rate on my loans. And this is a bet on myself and my abilities. This isn't just investments in the stock market, but it could be an investment in a business or a side hustle. And I'll basically look at my interest rate on my loans, which is 5%, and I'll ask myself, can I beat 5% with this investment? And if I have a high degree of confidence that I can, then I'll choose to invest that money. In summary, it's nice to have extra cash laying around, but what do you do with that cash? Should you invest or should you pay off your debt? Both are responsible financial moves. After your emergency fund is built and your mandatory minimum payments are paid, it'll really come down to the growth rate of the investment versus the interest rate on your debt and the emotional burden that your debt has on you. If you enjoyed this video, could you help me out by liking it and also subscribing, because I'll provide you, a young professional, with more content to develop personally, professionally, and financially. I'll see you on the next video.